Greetings, everyone. Hey, how you doing? It's Matt Sella. Today, we're doing a spoiler talk review for The Owl House Season 2, Episode 4, dubbed Keeping Up A-fear-ances. Yes, that's right. We're talking about Episode 4 of The Owl House, and we're super excited to be here. And when I say we, I literally mean me and Marc. Joined with me via satellite radio. He's a good friend. He's an awesome dude. All the way from Timbuktu, but not really. Anywho, how you doing out there, Marc?
Well, Matt, Timbuktu used to be nice, but I'm afraid I just had to move out because they just didn't have the Owl House there, apparently. Also, first rule of Owl House, kids, Hootie can't have nice things.
That's right. We feel sad for him. Well, we should probably get straight into our review. But before we do that, may I remind you folks, if you enjoy watching videos like this, where Marc and we like to review animation, whether in movies or TV shows, you enjoy that kind of discussion, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like reviews like this, and share among your friends. It'll really help us in the long run. I also do some animation, so be sure to check me out on Twitch. Links are in the description below. Anywho, without further ado, what is this episode of The Owl House, Keeping Up A-fear-ances, all about? Well, I'll keep it simple for you folks. Ida gets an unwelcome visit from a family member, her mother, who puts a strain on everyone in the Owl House. Seeking to help out Ida with her curse, she attempts to use a book she acquired from her master to help alleviate this curse after 30 years of struggling. And Luce is along for the ride, unsure if this is really the right way to go. And that's the general synopsis of this episode. Marc, why don't you kick things off here? What worked for you? What didn't work for you?
Oh, there were a lot of things that did work for me, Matt. Actually, some of it was actually right off the bat. I love, we actually had talked about this, Ida's morning routine. I love that she actually screws in her gold fang tooth. I thought that was just a cute touch and everything. This episode definitely confirmed to me that Ida is a bit of a day drinker with this apple blood. And that was fun because there was none in the house. She saw some free sign and she frickin' went for it. Ida and Lilith's mother is an interesting character. I honestly, especially with how she was shown in the beginning of the episode in a flashback, thought maybe she would be a bit more aggressive in her pursuits, but instead she kind of just winds up really just being, I don't want to say harmless because she's clearly really powerful, but just sort of, she's definitely more gullible than I think I expected. She seems to fall for a lot of schemes and scams that she really just wants to believe in to help her daughter. Lilith, relationship with her, I thought was a lot more fun and interesting just because it's pretty clear that there's a complex there, so it was nice to see that at least start to mend. And honestly, it was really nice because, Lilith just winds up on the couch eating a bunch of ice cream that have a bunch of great punny kind of spooky names to them, like enough that I'm honestly convinced I saw some of them as, limited edition Halloween ice creams at Safeway at one point. Sometimes they do that, like the Count Choculas and all that stuff, but with ice cream. And King starts to have some serious doubt about his father, which is a nice little bridge for episode 3. It's not such an isolated incident. And overall, it was very cute. This episode was directed by Amelia Lawrence, who directed the first episode of this season, and it was just kind of fun. There's some nice animation for some effects for a little bit of a mishap with the curse at the end when they finally get the potions back in them. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil everything, Matt. What were some bits you liked?
I definitely agree with you on Ida's mother. I actually really liked how much she really does care for Ida, and by the end, also Lilith, who is feeling neglected by her own mother. And the fact is, I find her mother very relatable. The fact that we've known people who have been so, I'm not going to necessarily say overbearing, but definitely desperate to try to help their children out to the point where people take advantage of people in such desperate needs. And so this episode definitely explores that a lot, and I find that to be very well grounded. What Lilith went through, as well as Ida, when battling the curse, we finally got to see her in beast form. And obviously with Ida, it's like we've seen her, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of scary but cuddly in a weird poofy feathery way. But then when we see Lilith in her full beast mode, she's like this hulking monstrosity of a thing, and I was like, oh damn, that's actually kind of badass. But obviously not in a good situation, of course. But I think overall, I'm gonna keep my points fairly short with this episode. I thought it was a good cog added to the Owl House machine, the narrative, if you will. But I don't know if anything really stood out to me overly endearing throughout this episode. It just felt more of a continuation about where the characters are right now, a personal family effect, which I like. And I think before we started recording, Mark and I were talking about this, and Mark brought up the fact that their father is a factor in all this. And what is kind of interesting to me is I thought about that, and their mother doesn't really seem to have the passive-aggressive nature that may have created Ida and Lilith's personality. So I wonder if Ida's mother is kind of like the good parent, the one who's like loving and accepting, whereas maybe their father was the more dismissive, judgmental figure in their life that kind of created that rebellious nature that Ida has. So I'm quite curious to see that unravel. That I like. To quickly go into what we got teased at the end, when we finally saw Luce's mother in the human world, which I think we've seen her before when she was receiving letters, and then the very final shot seems to be some kind of phantom Luce or like a cloned Luce who is acting in real Luce's place. I think that's supposed to be like a jaw-dropping reveal for many people, but as soon as I saw that, I wasn't really surprised something like that would happen. And this isn't a detriment on the show itself at all, but considering my age and how many shows that I try to watch every now and then, most of them are like fantastical shows, whether live action or animated, you tend to kind of pick up a lot of these story beats that seem to go in the direction you expect. And I think for me, the end of this episode, the fact that we have like a clone Luce acting in real Luce's place to trick the mother or to try to get something out of her, which I'm assuming that's what's going to lead up to. You're not really surprised by any of this, but that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. I'm quite curious to see where this goes.
No, absolutely. And I kind of do echo that statement. I don't think Shadow Luz was much of a surprise if you were paying attention. We knew at the very least in some capacity someone on the other side was impersonating Luz. Maybe it's just more of a shock that it's actually someone physically there and just not someone kind of communicating through letters, or that the deception is so direct, I think might be more of a shock for people than the deception itself.
And speaking of shock, I'm not really sure if this is considered a shock, Mark, but the other thing we got at the very end was a little bit of an exposition dump where Ida's mother revealed to Luce that Luce wasn't the only human to ever come to the Boiling Isles, and apparently a long time ago there was one other person who did, and they apparently had an ability to go between them, and that finding out who this person is and maybe like learn more about them, Luce can learn how to head back to the human world herself, obviously because she wants to see her mom again. And that started to make me think about some things of where that human may have gone. I want to say my theory now, but I have a tendency to be wrong a lot, so I'm going to keep that to myself until we learn a little bit more about this mysterious human of the past.
Oh, for sure. That's definitely the big reveal. And I think now with, things dying down with the Emperor because he no longer has a need for Ida or anybody really, that's going to be your big driving force throughout season 2 is Luce trying to get home and pursuing more knowledge on this human who had made it to the Boiling Isles and apparently been able to survive and live there without, as far as we know, having too much go down. But I have my theories too that don't want to necessarily bring them up here. But yeah, that is definitely going to be our main objective throughout this now, even with King and so many other fun little things. I look forward to seeing Ida and Lilith's dad for sure. And yeah, season 2 is continuing to be fun and I'm just always looking forward for more. Oh, and I do hope Hootie actually learns or gains the ability to write because now Lilith's not going to be living with them anymore and he has a pen pal. And, we can't let Hootie have nice things, I guess, because he's an abomination monster.
Oh, poor guy. Well, you heard our opinion, but now we want to hear yours. Let us know in the comment section below, what did you think of this episode of The Owl House, Season 2, Episode 4, Keeping Up A-fear-ances? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Share your thoughts. Join the conversation. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, ring that bell to be notified when new videos drop. And if you want to support me directly, consider going to my Patreon. And if you want to watch me do some animation, be sure to follow me on Twitch. I usually stream on weekends. Links are in the description below. This is Matt Sella.
This is Mark.
Thanking you all for tuning in, folks.